Hey everyone, welcome back to No Filter Frequency, the podcast where we dive headfirst into the messiest, most controversial stories trending online. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Aaron, and today we are serving up some serious tea because this story, whew, Crystal, tell them what we're dealing with.
Okay, so picture this. Overprotective church boy becomes pastor, gets power, gets attention from women for the first time in his life, and then, well, let's just say things get very messy very fast. Oh no. We're talking secret relationships, affairs with married women, unplanned pregnancies, forced marriages. This has everything.
It's like a soap opera, but it's real life. Before we get into this absolute chaos, though, if you're loving the unfiltered content, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, smash that like button, share this with your most gossipy friend.
You know the one. But seriously, before we dive in, I want to talk about something. We get a lot of messages from people asking how we choose our stories, and honestly, stories like this one just find us. They're so wild, so unbelievable that they practically scream podcast material. And this one, Aaron, when you first read this to me, my jaw was on the floor.
And drop a comment letting us know your thoughts, because trust me, you're going to have opinions after this one. Crystal, take it away.
Right? Like I had to read it 3 times because I couldn't believe it was real. And honestly, stories like this are why we do this podcast. Not to judge people, but to look at these situations and understand how things can spiral so completely out of control. Because let's be honest, we've all made questionable decisions, but this is like a masterclass in how not to handle, well, anything really. All right, here's the story that came across our desk. This guy writes, I'm a man in my mid-30s who grew up with an overprotective single mother. Because of that, I struggled socially and had no experience with relationships. At 18, I joined a church, grew quickly in my faith, and by my mid-20s, became a youth leader and later an assistant pastor.
Already seeing red flags.
For the first time in my life, I was respected and admired, but I didn't know how to handle the attention, especially from women. Eventually, I crossed boundaries and got involved with a woman from the church, Amanda. What started as counseling turned into a secret relationship. You know what strikes me most about this story? The psychological profile here. This is a textbook case of someone who was emotionally stunted in adolescence, suddenly being thrust into a position of power and respect. When you grow up sheltered and overprotected, you don't develop the normal social and emotional skills that most people learn through dating, relationships, and yes, even heartbreak as teenagers.
Oh, no, no, no. That's such a good point. It's like he was emotionally 16 years old, but in a 25-year-old's body with real adult responsibilities and power over people's spiritual lives. And that's actually terrifying when you think about it. Churches need to do better psychological screening because this situation was entirely predictable.
And can we pause here for a second? Because this counseling situation is where everything went wrong. In professional therapy, there are strict ethical guidelines about dual relationships for this exact reason. You cannot be someone's counselor and their romantic partner. The power dynamic is completely skewed. Amanda came to him vulnerable, probably sharing her deepest fears and insecurities, and he exploited that emotional intimacy. Soon after, I began seeing another woman, Mary, who was married at the time. I was living a double life, keeping both relationships hidden while continuing my role in the church. Things fell apart when Amanda secretly stopped using birth control, became pregnant, and told the pastor. Under pressure and fear of scandal, I married her, even though I didn't love her.
Exactly. And this is why licensed therapists have to go through years of training about boundaries, ethics, and transference. Churches often just throw people into counseling roles with zero professional training, like, oh, you're good with people and know the Bible. Here, go fix someone's trauma. It's so irresponsible. Wait, what?
The marriage was unhappy and lasted 3 years. I ended up cheating, which led to everything being exposed. I lost my reputation, my position in the church, and most people turned against me. Eventually, I left the church, got divorced, and fought for custody of my son. I now share custody and have focused on rebuilding my life, working, going back to school, and starting fresh. Looking back, I realize I mishandled relationships, lacked boundaries, and let attention and temptation ruin something meaningful. I need everyone to understand how serious this is. Reproductive coercion is a form of domestic abuse. It's when someone uses pregnancy or children to control their partner. Amanda making a unilateral decision to stop birth control without telling him is a massive violation. It doesn't matter that this guy was being inappropriate. You don't trap someone with a pregnancy, period.
Okay, where do I even begin with this train wreck? And you know what makes this even worse? She then went and told the pastor, knowing exactly what would happen. She knew the church would pressure him to marry her. That's calculated manipulation. Two wrongs don't make a right, and just because this guy was abusing his power doesn't give her the right to abuse hers through reproductive coercion.
I know, right? There are so many layers to unpack here. Like, I almost don't know where to start because every sentence is more wild than the last.
First of all, can we talk about Amanda secretly going off birth control? Like, that's reproductive coercion, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's a huge violation of trust. I mean, yes, this guy was being completely inappropriate with his position of power,
Oh, for sure.
but that doesn't excuse what she did. You can't just trap someone with a pregnancy. And then the church pressuring him to marry her to avoid scandal. That's so messed up on multiple levels.
Right, like the church is more concerned about their image than actually addressing the real problem here, which is a pastor who clearly should not have been in that position.
Exactly. And can we talk about how this guy went from zero dating experience to juggling two secret relationships? Like, sir, maybe pump the brakes a little bit. But let's talk about the church's role in all of this because they are not innocent bystanders. Their immediate response was damage control, not pastoral care. Instead of getting this guy proper help, counseling, or even just removing him from his position quietly, they pushed for a marriage to cover up the scandal. That's not biblical. That's not ethical. That's just protecting their reputation at the expense of everyone involved.
It's like he went from never having attention to being in a candy store and just losing all self-control. But dude, you're supposed to be a spiritual leader. This is so typical of how religious institutions handle these situations, though. They're more concerned with appearances than actually dealing with the problem. And now you've got an unwanted marriage between two people who shouldn't be together, bringing a child into a toxic situation. The church basically said, just get married and make this go away, which helped exactly nobody.
And one of them was married. Like, Mary was married, and you're out here being the other man while preaching about morality. The audacity.
I mean, I almost have to respect the commitment to chaos, though. Like this man said, I'm going to make the worst possible decision at every possible opportunity.
Stop it. But honestly, though, I do feel bad for that kid caught in the middle of all this. Like, imagine finding out your parents got married because your mom baby trapped your dad and the church pressured them into it. And we need to talk more about Mary because her story gets completely glossed over here, and that's not okay. This woman was married, presumably to someone in their church community, and she's having an affair with their pastor. What was her situation? Was she unhappy in her marriage? Was she also being manipulated by someone in a position of authority? We're missing a huge piece of this story.
Man, that's going to be some expensive therapy sessions when that kid grows up. But at least it sounds like the dad is fighting for custody and trying to be present. That's such an important point, Crystal. We're getting this story entirely from his perspective. But Mary's husband probably had no idea his wife was being pursued by their trusted spiritual leader. And Mary herself? Was she seeking counseling too? Did this start as spiritual guidance that got twisted? The power dynamic there is just as problematic as with Amanda.
You know what really gets me, though? The ripple effects of this guy's actions are going to last for generations. That little boy is going to grow up knowing his parents' marriage was forced, that his mom trapped his dad with a pregnancy, and that his dad was having affairs while preaching morality. That's the kind of family history that creates serious trust issues and relationship problems down the line.
True, and I will give him some credit for taking accountability at the end. Like he's not trying to play victim or blame everyone else. He admits he messed up big time.
And it's not just the kid. Think about Amanda. She's now a single mom who everyone knows baby trapped a pastor. Her reputation in that community is destroyed. Mary's marriage was probably destroyed too. Her husband has to live with the knowledge that his wife cheated with their spiritual leader. And the congregation, they've lost trust in their leadership. One person's poor choices created a tsunami of trauma.
Yeah, but Crystal, can we talk about how all this started? This guy was doing counseling with Amanda and it turned romantic. That's such a massive abuse of power.
Oh, absolutely. That's predatory behavior 101. She came to him for spiritual guidance and he turned it into his personal dating app. That's disgusting.
And then he has the nerve to say he couldn't handle the attention from women? Bro, you're in a position of authority. People are going to look up to you. That doesn't mean you get to sleep with them.
Right. It's giving major, I can't control myself around women, so it's their fault energy. Like, sir, the problem is not that women found you attractive. The problem is that you have zero boundaries or self control.
But here's what I keep thinking about. This whole situation could have been avoided if churches actually properly vetted and trained their leaders. Like, maybe don't put someone with zero relationship experience in charge of counseling people.
That's such a good point. It's like giving someone who's never driven a car the keys to a bus full of people. Where was the oversight? Where was the proper training? This story is also a perfect example of why we need to have serious conversations about power dynamics in religious institutions. Pastors, priests, spiritual leaders, they have incredible influence over people's lives. People come to them at their most vulnerable moments, seeking guidance, comfort, and healing. When someone in that position abuses that trust, the damage is exponentially worse than a regular relationship betrayal. Exactly. And now multiple people's lives are completely upended. Amanda's life, Mary's marriage, this innocent kid who didn't ask for any of this. 100%. And churches need to stop treating pastoral roles like they're just jobs for good Christians. These positions require actual professional training, ongoing supervision, and regular psychological evaluations. You wouldn't let someone perform surgery just because they're a good person who read some medical textbooks. So, why do we let untrained people handle people's spiritual and emotional crises? Don't forget about Mary's husband, too. Like, that poor man found out his wife was having an affair with their pastor. I can't even imagine the betrayal and trust issues that would cause. Ah, you're right. And then this guy just left the church and started over while everyone else has to deal with the aftermath. If there's one thing I hope people take away from this story, it's the importance of boundaries. Professional boundaries aren't just suggestions, they're protective barriers that keep everyone safe. And if you're in a position of authority, whether that's as a boss, teacher, counselor, or spiritual leader, it's your responsibility to maintain those boundaries. You can't blame your victims for tempting you or being attractive. That's predator logic. I mean, what else was he supposed to do at that point, though? Stay and make it even more awkward for everyone? Sometimes cutting and running is the only option left. And look, I want to address something else here. If you're someone who grew up sheltered or overprotected and suddenly finds yourself in a position where people look up to you or find you attractive, that's not an excuse to go wild. That's a signal that you need to slow down, maybe get some therapy, and definitely not take on roles involving counseling other people until you've figured yourself out first. True. But I do wonder if he's learned anything from this experience, or if he's just going to repeat these same patterns somewhere else. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Like, he says he's rebuilding and taking accountability, but actions speak louder than words. I hope for his son's sake that he's actually doing the work to become a better person. Let's talk about red flags that people need to watch out for. If your pastor, counselor, or any authority figure starts sharing personal details about their life, complimenting your appearance, meeting with you alone frequently, or suggesting special relationships, those are massive red flags. Healthy professional relationships have clear boundaries and don't involve romantic or sexual feelings on either side. Absolutely. Well, listeners, what do you think? Is this guy genuinely remorseful or just sorry he got caught? And what about Amanda's baby trap situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments because we want to hear from you. Exactly. And if someone in authority starts saying things like, "You're so mature for your age, you understand me like no one else. This is just between us," or "God told me we have a special connection," run. Those are classic grooming techniques. Predators love to make their victims feel special and chosen. Legitimate spiritual guidance doesn't involve secrecy or special relationships. Before we wrap this up, I want to hear from our listeners. Have any of you experienced something like this in your own religious communities? Not necessarily this extreme, but inappropriate behavior from people in positions of spiritual authority? Because honestly, this story isn't as unique as we'd like it to be. These power dynamics exist in churches, temples, and spiritual communities everywhere. And if you enjoyed this absolute mess of a story, make sure to check out our previous episodes where we've covered everything from workplace drama to family feuds. There's always more tea to spill.
Yes, and we want to know, what do you think appropriate consequences should be in situations like this? Should people who abuse positions of spiritual authority be banned from leadership forever? Should there be legal consequences? Should churches be required to have professional oversight? Drop your thoughts in the comments because we read every single one and your perspectives always add so much to these conversations.
And listen, if this story hit close to home for anyone listening, if you've experienced spiritual abuse or inappropriate behavior from someone in authority, please know that it's not your fault and there are resources available to help. Organizations like Grace, Godly Response to Abuse in the Christian Environment, specifically work with victims of spiritual abuse. You deserve support and healing, not shame or silence. You know what, though? I do want to acknowledge that this guy does seem to be taking some genuine accountability in his story. He's not making excuses or blaming everyone else. He's admitting he messed up. He's paying child support, fighting for custody, and supposedly working on himself. That's more than we see from a lot of people who abuse their power. The question is whether it's genuine or just damage control.
Until next time, keep it real and keep it unfiltered. We'll see you next week with another story that'll have you questioning everything. True accountability would involve him doing more than just admitting fault, though. It would mean actively working to understand why he did what he did, getting professional therapy, probably reaching out to make amends where appropriate, and definitely never putting himself in a position of spiritual authority over others. Words are cheap. We need to see consistent actions over time.
Bye, everyone.